The next question is, how do the regulations help keep people healthy and safe? Let's think about a relatively simple example, such as street repairs. I've seen situations in Europe where a member of the public can be walking underneath an elevated load. This is obviously very dangerous. At face value, the people involved in this scenario are the contractors and the public. But let's think about who else is involved. First, someone must have been instructed to have the works be carried out and also to be paying for them. So that's the client. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Somebody such as the highways engineer will have specified or designed the repair, and that's the designer. With me so far?
Yes, you've got the client, the public, and the designer.
Finally, you've got an organisation that's doing the repairing, and that's the contractor. Depending on the requirements of a particular contract, Amy could be asked to act as a contractor, designer, or maybe even the client itself. There are situations where perhaps we're asked to help the client discharge their duties.
So, when does CDM come in?
The CDM assigns responsibilities to each of those parties so that the construction work is planned, designed, managed, and monitored in a way that ensures the work is delivered safely.
How does it do that?
We work through it logically and think about whose responsibilities belong to whom. We need to make sure that anyone we appoint is competent. That means they have the skills, the knowledge, and the experience to carry out their duties. If people don't have these qualities, it's much more likely they will make mistakes or fail to identify and manage hazards, which can cause injuries and hurt people. So we need to employ competent professionals.
Okay, that takes care of Amy's responsibilities. What about the client?
That's a good question. The client must ensure enough time and other resources are allocated to the project. Things are much more likely to go wrong if people are rushed or lack the resources, including money. These are all things they need to do their job properly.
Is that it for the client side?
No, not quite. People also need to have the correct information. For example, what information do we have about the existing makeup of this road and any surface underneath it? We need to know where the electrical and gas surfaces are positioned and so on. This will help other people involved, named duty holders, work out the risks and how they can be managed.
That makes sense. You don't want people burrowing into gas pipes, do you?
Of course not. The information the client provides may also include the client's expectations or requirements. For example, a client may stipulate the hours or days that work can or cannot take place to help safeguard the public, or they might state what actions they will take themselves.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. Let's say you're working on a busy street. For example, the client, which may be a council, may need you to notify shop owners. The design they provide must provide a suitable solution. If surfaces are present, a designer must propose a different solution to reduce the risk of damaging those surfaces. It would also be dangerous if the repair specifications resulted in a slippery surface. And that's just about it for the client.
Okay, so we've dealt with the client. Who's next?
Next up is the designers. Designers ensure the designs are compatible and ensure health and safety during the project and beyond. It's important to think about designing for safety, not just during the construction phase, but also in terms of how it can be maintained afterwards. Designers must let the contractor or the client know if their designs pose significant risks. The contractor will need to use all this information to help them formulate a plan for carrying out the work. They'll need to consider what the contractors will be doing to keep members of the public safe. What welfare facilities will their workers use? And how will vehicles and materials access the site? A responsible client should check that they are satisfied with their contractor's plan. If the project parties get it right, significant risks can be avoided, or at least better managed.
That all seems pretty clear. Everyone has their responsibilities, and everyone has to understand what they all are. It's all about communication, isn't it?
Yes, it's about communication, but it's also about understanding how that influences the design, build, construction, maintenance, or the demolition process you're undertaking.
Where I get lost is when CDM starts using acronyms and jargon, and this confuses me sometimes.
That's not uncommon. There's a lot of jargon in our industry. In CDM, the information the client gives designers and contractors to enable them to carry out their work is called pre-construction information, or PCI for short. This is important as it provides the designers knowledge of hazards that could be present, such as asbestos, so that they can account for these in the design. The contractor's plan for managing the construction work is called the Construction Phase Plan, often called the CPP. As you can see, this terminology is straightforward if you know what it stands for. When multiple organizations are involved in a project, there's always room for confusion.
Yes, I can see that.
However, CDM has a solution. If a commercial construction project is likely to have more than one contractor, the client must appoint in writing a principal designer called the PD and a principal contractor called the PC. Amy often undertakes both the PD and the PC roles.
I didn't know that.
Yes, Amy will often undertake both the PC and PD roles. However, if the appointment is not made in writing, those roles automatically default to the client. It's also important to understand that when there is more than one contract, the number of separate organizations involved will increase. So, for example, if a roofing contractor subcontracted some work to a scaffolding contractor, we now have more than one contractor. The easiest way to remember this is to think of the principal designer controlling the construction design phase and the principal contractor controlling the construction phase. Whether you're a principal designer or a principal contractor, both roles are considered duty holders, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. But the thing I want you to take away here is that, in essence, the construction design management regulations mirror the principles of good project management. One other point to remember about the PD and PC roles is that titles can also be used under other legislation relating to building regulations. These roles might have the same name, but they're very different. So today, we're just thinking about the principal designers and principal contractors as they apply to the CDM regulations.
Got it.
Anyway, a well-planned project is much more likely to be delivered on time and on budget and meet the client's brief more than a poorly planned project.
Okay, let me summarize this. The CDM should promote effective communication, coordination, and cooperation on any project. Amy complies with the CDM, and Amy wants to comply with it because it puts safety first, which is one of our core values.
Exactly. We all believe that the health, safety, and well-being of our teams, clients, and those around us should be the priority over everything else. We all want to put safety first and go home to our families safe and well. CDM is an opportunity that gives us the structure to put these values into practice by ensuring that some of our highest risk activities are effectively planned, managed, and monitored.
I think that makes a lot more sense now. I understand what CDM is for. At the heart of it, it's all about communication and health and safety.